Miracles, miracles, and more miracles. Isn't it strange how the creator of all it is can do anything with it he wishes? Not really, no. He made it, it's his. John chapter 11. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to Jesus, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness doesn't lead to death. It's for the glory of God, so that the Son of Man, the Son of God, may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. And then after this he said to the disciples, let's go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and are you going there again? Well, Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he doesn't stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light ain't in him, not in him. After saying these things, he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. Wake him up. Bring him back to life. The disciples, they said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he'll recover. Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died, and for your sake I'm glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Now Thomas, the one called the twin, the one who was a doubter, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Sounds a lot like Peter, doesn't it? I am the resurrection and the life. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out and met him. But Mary, she remained seated in the house, mourning, I would imagine, as anyone would be. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. And Jesus said to her, your brother, he will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am, another I am. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? Do you believe this, pilgrim? Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, Son of God, who is coming into the world. When she said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus hadn't yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. So when the Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother, he wouldn't have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and when Jesus, who had come with her, also weeping, all the Jews were weeping. Everybody was weeping. They loved this man, Lazarus. He was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. One of the shortest sentences in the Bible, I would think. Jesus wept. He was man just like us. He suffered just like us. He suffered more than any of us will ever suffer. So the Jews said, See how he loved him. Some of them said, Could he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? Then Jesus, deeply moved again, he came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, Take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there'll be an odor, for he'd been dead for 4 days. And Jesus said to her, Didn't I tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. And Jesus lifted his eyes and he said, Father, I thank you that you've heard me. I knew that you always hear me. But I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. So when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! The man who had died, he came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him, let him go. Well, many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did, they believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So the chief priests and the Pharisees, they gathered the council and said, What are we to do? What are we to do? For this man, he performs many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place, we'll lose our jobs, and even our nation. But one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, You know nothing at all, nor do you understand that it is better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish. He didn't say this of his own accord. But being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation. And not for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who are scattered abroad all around the world. And we carry that on. So from that day on, they made plans to put him to death. And Jesus therefore no longer walked openly among the Jews, but went from there to the region near the wilderness, to a town called Ephraim. There he stayed with the disciples. Now the Passover of the Jews was at hand. Many went up from the country to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. They were looking for Jesus and saying to one another as he stood in the temple, What do you think? That he will not come to the feast at all? Now the chief priests and the Pharisees, they'd given orders that if anyone knew where he was, he should let them know so that they might arrest him. Now this got around, and I would imagine it tickled the ears of a certain fella named Judas Iscariot. Well, go back and read this chapter without my mumbling and stumbling, and there's a lot in here you can learn. This will get you closer and closer to Jesus, knowing what he is, who he is, what he can do. He can save your soul. God bless, Pilgrim. Have a blessed day with our Lord Jesus.